By the end of today's video, you are going to be fully prepared for your very first trip to Denmark, knowing everything from how to get around and places to visit, as well as all the best foods to try and random little culture shocks to be mindful of. Now, in case you're new here, hi, I'm Christina from happytowander.com. And this channel is all about practical travel tips from someone who's been there, done that, so be sure to like and subscribe if that sounds like your kind of thing. Now, let's get started with Denmark travel planning tips. In terms of arriving in Denmark, the most common airport for overseas visitors is, of course, Copenhagen Airport, which services over 60 airlines from around the world. But flights into Billund and Aarhus can be quite popular as well, especially because those airports are serviced by budget airlines like Ryanair. Copenhagen is of course a highlight of any visit to Denmark, but do know that there is way more to explore beyond just the capital as well. For instance, if you're into castles, both Frederiksborg Castle and Kronborg Castle, aka the Hamlet Castle, are both easy day trips that you can do from Copenhagen. Other popular cities and towns include Aarhus, which is really well known for its cultural offerings, Aalborg, known for its modern architecture and rich history, as well as Ribe, which is the oldest town in Denmark. And for those who are interested in nature, there's amazing beaches all along the west coast, 5 national parks, and over 400 islands to explore. Not to mention Billund, which is of course the birthplace of Lego and also home to Legoland, which is the most popular amusement park in Denmark, for obvious reasons. So yes, don't just limit yourself to Copenhagen because there is truly so much to see. I'd recommend finding local bloggers who are based in Denmark to get a better idea of all the different places that you can visit in the country. In a pinch, I also found that the Visit Denmark tourism website actually had a lot of really great suggestions as well. Now, in terms of when to visit, I do think that Denmark makes quite a nice year-round destination. As they always say, there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing. So as long as you're prepared, there really is something for everyone throughout all the different seasons. Though winters can be cold and nights very long, don't forget that Denmark is of course the pioneer of hygge, which is the Danish art of coziness and contentment, and a concept that has really taken off in places all around the world. So even though it is cold in the winter time, there's loads of opportunities to cozy up and really enjoy yourself in the winter as well, especially if you time your visit for the Christmas season, because Denmark really does go all out, especially in Copenhagen, with Christmas decorations and some cozy markets as well. So definitely don't discount winter if you're looking for those cozy vibes. Of course, if you're hoping for good weather and you want to make the most of Denmark's amazing nature, then summer is definitely the best time to go. Plus, if you time your visit for June 23rd, you can actually participate in the Midsummer Festival of St. Hans, which is an annual festival during which people will gather with their friends and family, have a good meal, and then gather for community bonfires, many of which will put a witch effigy that they then burn. Okay, so it's not the cutest tradition, but it's definitely an interesting cultural tradition to observe if you happen to plan your visit for that time period. Now, in regards to accommodation, there's really different options for every price point. If you're hoping to get out in nature, there's loads of different campsites, as well as cabins and cottages that you can rent. Though be aware that unlike other Nordic countries, wild camping is actually not allowed in Denmark, so you can't just camp anywhere. So keep that in mind. In Danish cities, while there are a lot of independent properties and apartment rentals as well, I found that the majority of hotels actually belong to different chains. So if you're planning a multi-destination trip in Denmark, it might actually make sense to stay loyal to a certain chain so that you can take advantage of different benefits and discounts. Major chains that you'll find in Denmark include Scandic, Radisson, Strawberry, which includes Comfort and Clarion hotels, and our Hansen Hotel Group. In Copenhagen as well, for a nice upscale option, I can also recommend staying at one of the Brøkne hotels. They have a few different properties, but all of them kind of focus on having a nice special experience and kind of like a unique property feel. Along with one of the coolest perks I've ever experienced in a hotel, which is a free wine hour and a free nightcap hour at each of their properties. Which means if you're exploring the city and you're far away from your hotel, you can just duck into any of their properties and grab a free glass of wine during the wine hour. So that's definitely quite a cool perk that I was sure to take advantage of. In any case, most chains will offer some kind of incentive to book with them. So with Strawberry Hotels, for instance, this summer they had a special summer pass, which essentially allowed you to buy a package of 10 nights at any of their hotels, which evened out to be about €89 a night. So definitely not a bad option. Bruckner Hotels also offers their 8th night free if you join their Friends program. So always be on the lookout for different benefits and make sure to maximize those when you're choosing where to stay. Now, it's important to note as well that much like other Nordic countries, Denmark is heavily reliant on card payments. So if you don't already have a debit or credit card that doesn't charge you for usage abroad, make sure you have one before your trip. I've been using Wise cards for the past few years and have had no complaints. They're super easy to set up. And if you use my referral link in the description, you can get your first transfer for free up to €500. Now, let's talk about transport and getting around Denmark. The good news is Denmark is actually a fairly small country, so you can cover quite a bit of ground if you are wanting to explore beyond the main hotspots like Copenhagen, for instance. It's also fairly easy to cross over to Sweden at certain points if you're hoping to add another country to your itinerary. The ferry between Elsinore to Helsingborg in Sweden, for instance, only takes 20 minutes, and the train from Copenhagen to Malmö is only 40 minutes, so definitely easy to even take a day trip over to Sweden if you wanted to. Now, in terms of traveling around the country, there's a lot of public transport options that are available so that you can easily navigate even without a car. For instance, the main point of entry for most visitors, Copenhagen Airport, is actually only 15 minutes away by train into Copenhagen city center. And from there, you can easily catch a train or a long-distance bus to pretty much anywhere else in the country. Of course, there's also domestic carriers as well that can fly you into other airports in Denmark if you're looking for a quicker solution. I'd recommend using a service like Omeo to compare the different options at a glance from point A to point B across different modes of transport, just so you can see what all your different options are. It's also worth noting that many regions in Denmark actually have their own transport authority that governs the ticket prices and the ticket types for public transport. Like DOT, for instance, which is the app that you would use for Copenhagen and Zealand. There's also an app called Reiseplanen that you can use that is supposed to be able to show you different routes across regions, although Google Maps can also work quite well in a pinch. Now, the main train operator in Denmark is known as DSB. They also have their own app where you can buy tickets directly. Unfortunately, Danish train tickets can be quite expensive, so the best way to get a good deal is actually buying your tickets in advance. So luckily, DSB has these special tickets known as orange tickets that tend to be for trains that are during off-peak periods, and these can be substantially cheaper than just buying your ticket on the day of. That said, one thing to be mindful of is that with Danish train tickets, it never comes with a reservation. So if you're hoping to book a seat, then you will have to book a separate seat ticket in order to do that. Of course, this isn't mandatory, but if you're traveling during a peak time and you want to make sure you have a seat, then I would definitely recommend booking a seat if you can. But most of the time, if you're traveling in off-peak periods, you should be fine to not book a seat. If you think you'll be using public transport a lot, another thing to look into is whether the specific transport authority in the region you're traveling in offers any kind of passes. So with DSB, for instance, they do offer city passes that allow you to have unlimited travel on all modes of transport for a specific time period in the region that you purchase for. So if you plan to use a lot of public transport, definitely look into those, because those can also save you money if you're planning on doing a lot of trips. You can, of course, also do a road trip around Denmark if your priority is utmost flexibility and going off the beaten path. In fact, there is a special route known as the Marguerite route, which is designed in a way that you can pass 1,000 different attractions, castles, manor houses, you name it, across 3,400 kilometers in the country. So definitely worth considering if you're planning an epic Danish road trip. But again, I don't think having a car is essential, especially if it's your first time in the country. Public transport does get you to a lot of places. Getting around cities themselves, I do think that on foot is the best way. Most Danish cities are really walkable, and that way you get to see way more. Of course, you can also do as a Dane would and get a bike. Bike lanes are very common in Denmark, they're very well marked, and if you're a competent cyclist, then renting a bike is definitely a great way to get around, much like a local would. There's a lot of different rental companies that you can go with, but one very common bike share app that you'll find in most of the major cities is called Donkey Bike, so be sure to look into that. Now, finally, let's move on to some Denmark travel tips for once you arrive. First off, in terms of language, don't worry, most Danes speak phenomenal English, so you don't need to worry too much about mastering Danish before your trip. Of course, I do think it's always polite to learn a few words like hi, for instance, which conveniently is just hi, as well as thank you, which is tak. That said, do bear in mind that many names of destinations can be different in Danish compared to in English. So Copenhagen, for instance, is København, and Elsinore is Helsingør. Now beware that dining and drinking out can cost quite a bit in Denmark, but luckily if you are a foodie, there's loads of different options ranging from super high-end fine dining all the way to ubiquitous hot dog carts pretty much everywhere. One of my favorite places to grab a bite in a more casual setting are food halls or food markets. Most major Danish cities will have one of these, and these are a really great place to sample a lot of different options in one place, often at a more affordable price point than at a sit-down restaurant. When you're in Denmark though, you should make sure you're trying plenty of Danish foods. Some classic staples include smørrebrød, which are these open-faced sandwiches that use rye bread and lots of different toppings. The national dish stegt flæsk, which is crispy pork served with potatoes. And of course, hot dogs, which apparently Danish people love. You'll find hot dog carts pretty much everywhere. And of course, there's Danish baked goods, which deserve their own separate section beyond just the Danish, which is a pastry that we already know and love abroad. Funnily enough, what we know as Danishes are actually called Vienna breads over in Denmark because the origins are said to be Austrian, but beyond that, there are so many other amazing pastries, biscuits, and especially cakes to enjoy in Denmark. It's said that most regions in Denmark have their own special cake, and there's specific cakes to be enjoyed for special occasions as well. So you're definitely never gonna go hungry when you're in Denmark, especially when you're a sweet tooth. There are way too many pastry types for me to name in this video, so my main recommendation really is to just go into a bakery and see what calls to you. Go for whatever looks and smells good. A very common staple though are snagel, which come with different types of flavors, cinnamon being the most common one, and that's just a very common swirly pastry that you'll see pretty much everywhere. And this is quite niche, but in Denmark, they really respect the art of queuing. So especially if you're going into a bakery, a lot of the time there is going to be a numbered system. So there will be a number machine that you can grab a number from, and then they'll call the number, and that's when you go to be served. So there isn't like a physical queue as you would typically find in other countries. Oftentimes there is a number system, not just in bakeries, but also in other settings like banks and pharmacies. So definitely keep that in mind. All right, if you think I've missed anything, be sure to leave more Denmark travel tips in the comments and like and subscribe for more travel videos just like this one. I'll see you next week. Bye!